Welcome to Quickie Wiki What? I'm Joseph, joined as usual by my partner Justin. Every episode, we each bring you a Wikipedia article we found interesting, weird, wild. I'm reading off a script and I did not write the script out properly. We each bring to the table a Wikipedia article we found interesting, weird, wild, and we try to explain it to each other. And of course, as usual, we are streaming this live from Twitch. Hello to the Twitch audience. But you'll also be able to find the VOD on YouTube afterwards, as well as the audio on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Wherever. If you get your podcasts out of the dumpster next door,
you'll
dig
find
through
it.
it.
You'll find this one in the dumpster.
You'll find it.
For sure. Now, I do have a little bit of news. You know, last week we did episode 0. You already know this, and I think the Twitch audience knows this, but little fact about how well we did, Justin. We managed to hit number 173. Only with episode 0, we reached number 173 on the Society and Culture charts on Apple Podcasts Poland.
Go Poland.
Shout out to our Polish listeners.
Yeah.
Yes. Y'all really boosting us over there, and we appreciate it.
Pumped.
Now, for our first episode, we've both got our very first articles. And if you're watching the VOD, you can see them at the bottom of the screen. Justin, what are you bringing to the table this week?
I'm bringing, well, it's Chuck E. Cheese. This is a short version, but my extended title that I have.
Oh, you made your own title for yours. Okay.
Is Single Gray Rat, the Nefarious History of Chuck E. Cheese. Because there's some scandal.
Is it really like scandal?
I think it is. I think that there's a scandal and then there's a cultural coincidence, a phenomenon, and I'll touch on that.
Cultural reset. Which Chuck E. Cheese was a big part of. Well, you're going into like his Showbiz Pizza.
Yes.
I'm not going to spoil it, but that was a big part of my childhood as well. Now, what I've got this week is I was inspired by the hit HBO Max show, The Gilded Age. And I did a little bit of research, did a little bit of digging on Wikipedia. I found a list called The 400, which is allegedly the 400 people who mattered in society.
Ooh.
But there's some controversy around it, and there was some scandals, some mockery, some shenanigans that we'll get into with some of the key players who wrote the list and gatekept the list, I would say.
This, by the way, is inspired by the recent HBO series, The Gilded Age, which is kind of a thing. You're gonna, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Well, yes, the HBO, which season 1 is done.
It's done.
And we very much enjoyed it.
We did.
Now, I'm going to say you go first.
All right. You want me to?
Well, I'm interested to hear about Chuck E. Cheese, and also I need a breather, because we set up this week in, I would say, record time.
Ooh, it was.
Within 40 minutes of going live,
everything broke.
Everything went wrong. And so this almost didn't happen. But it did happen, and we're here, and we're happy.
I always had I never lost faith.
Well,
I knew I'm married to you.
You also didn't have to do any of the setup.
That's true.
You just came in.
I understand it, but I don't have yeah.
You're the voice in the face.
The voice in the face.
And I'm the little rat.
No.
Chuck E. Cheese.
No.
Setting up in the background. Okay. I'll hand it over to you. Chuck E. Cheese. You accessed this Wikipedia article in the last few weeks.
Okay, yes. So Chuck E. Cheese, and there's a history section in there. There's a couple of other adjacent sections. So Nolan Bushnell is, you'll find out, the original founder of Chuck E. Cheese. And then there's a guy, Robert Brock, who is also a guy that... So those two names you should really keep in mind. But like I said, so Chuck E. Cheese started way back in 19...
What is Chuck E. Cheese?
Well, Chuck E. Cheese, it's this for... I assume that most people know what it is, but this is
it's an American thing, right? Basically.
Oh no, it's around the country. It's global.
The world.
Yeah, or around. Yeah, it's 47 states, and I think it's a dozen, 2 dozen countries or something like that. So it's an overseas phenomenon. but but it's basically it's a child's venue that there are you eat pizza. There's a bunch of video games, and then they have a combination of like costumed characters that are kind of like a la Disneyland, with Chuck E. Cheese as a mouse now, and then they have a bunch of other characters that are animals that are in bands, and there's kind of a bit of a lore to it, but and it's changed throughout. It's a combination, of live action and animatronics.
And what's his name follows me on Twitter.
Nolan Bushnell, the original founder, fan of the show, follows you on Twitter.
I don't know why. I don't know why at all.
Well, because he has got a video game, so that's a good start. So, Nolan Bushnell was originally back in 1977. He was originally with Atari, and he founded Atari. He came up with the game Pong and a few other games like that. And he came up with this thing called Bushnell's Law that is about video games, where it should be something that is easy to learn, but that's difficult to master. So I guess back in the day, like people at a bar or something like that would be playing a video game. It's just way too hard to like learn, right? And so people get frustrated. And so he kind of like made games accessible, and it would be like, but not too easy that anyone could be good at it. You had to kind of like difficult to master, And so that's kind of like the two audiences you think of for something like that are like drunks in a bar and then little kids, So little kids can pick it up.
They're both, yeah.
And maybe that overlaps. Maybe there's drunk kids.
I don't think so.
Probably not.
I mean, not under adult supervision or legally.
Yeah.
Yes. Did you play Atari?
I didn't play Atari. I had some friends that had ColecoVision, which was kind of in between Atari and Nintendo, and then everyone had Nintendo by the time I was, kind of kindergarten. We didn't have an original Nintendo. My parents were. We
Sad.
Didn't get
they
it
hated
until
you.
They did.
No.
Still do. Yeah, they might be listening.
They're probably watching.
No, maybe.
Okay, so Chuck E. Cheese. So why did it start if he's over here making video games?
So he's like, you know what? I want to have this venue, and I want a place to sell video games, and to have like all of a place where people can play and enjoy themselves, and it's a whole thing. Also, he was like fascinated with Disney, and Disneyland, their shows, they had like their little animatronic shows there, plus the live action figures. So he's like, okay, I want to have like my own little Disney World with video games, and then they're going to eat pizza.
He saw Mickey Mouse, and he said, let's make a trash can looking mouse. The opposite.
Okay, not quite, because kind of. So he's also, has got the computer background, and they're developing all of the animatronics and stuff himself. And so they buy the costumes, and they do all of that work. And guess what? They came up with the beloved franchise that we know as today, Coyote Pizza.
So that's obviously not happening anymore.
That obviously didn't happen
it
because
didn't take off. Wait.
No. They bought the rat costume thinking it was a coyote.
Oh, so Coyote Pizza never really got to take off.
It was like the original.
They thought a rat was a coyote. That's their first mistake.
So they didn't get it. They didn't get that part right. And there's like, oops, it's actually like a rat, not a coyote. So then someone comes up, well, and they come up with this name, Rick Rat's Pizza. Well, I think the marketing people got a hold of that, and they're like, no, maybe we shouldn't talk about a rodent in the name of our restaurant. And so then that's when they said, let's name the rat something. And then that's how it became Chuck E. Cheese.
I always thought it should be Chuckle Cheese.
Chuckle Cheese?
Because it's laughter.
Laughter?
Which is the best medicine, that they say.
Well, funnily, like they said, funnily, is that a word? But
it is, I think.
Okay. Well, they call it something else in Australia. They call it, I think it's Charlie cheese or something like that. Because Chuck.
Oh, that's cute.
Means
that's like
throw up in
Waldo and Wally.
Yeah.
Across the pond, they got where's Wally?
Across the pond.
What was that? Was that Justin does a Justin does I watch a lot of Yukon Vet on Discovery or whatever it's on. Justin likes to do it.
But she's from the Yukon, isn't she?
So Justin says that's a Yukon accent.
Oh, my husband.
I don't think that's a Yukon accent.
My husband,
If we
you got
can
to
get
play a
anyone
bear.
in Canada confirming or denying, that's it. Yeah, no, that's about as never Yukon. I don't believe.
Well, either way, I mean, I think. But back to Chuck E. Cheese, right? And so, where was I at? So, the restaurant finally opens in 1977. Like I said, it's just in San Jose, California, and it's a pretty big hit. Like it's a big thing. But at the time, our buddy Nolan, Atari guy, he has essentially sold Atari to Warner Media, and they didn't really want to. They were basically in business with him. They didn't want to do it. So he's like, I'm going to go into business all on my own now. And he says, so he takes over. He wants to expand it. And he opens up 7 new restaurants in California in the first 3 years. So it's taking off and doing a really good job. Well, he knows like the California area, but he's thinking bigger. He wants to get to the Midwest. And so he calls up this guy, Robert Brock. Now, Robert Brock is from Kansas, Pawnee Rock, Kansas.
A lot of fast food chains come out of Kansas.
Yeah, Pizza Hut.
Which I've learned since marrying you.
Yeah. Pizza Hut. The original Pizza Hut was there. They have like a lot of headquarters and stuff.
They like their fast food.
We do.
They like inventing it, eating it. I love Pizza Hut.
Hey. But there's been a few others that have like Freddy's. I don't know if people have Freddy's, but
my parents love Freddy's.
It's good stuff.
So they wanted to go to the Midwest.
And this guy Robert Brock he was a franchiser, and that's kind of what he did. He essentially started like the franchise that became Residence Inn. So he was very successful with doing like hotels and other,
Oh.
So he knows his stuff about opening businesses and spreading them around fast, you know. And he says, "Hey, we've got, let's do business together." And Robert's like, "Yeah, let's do it." And they work together for a while. But then Robert says, "Hey, you know what? I'm not feeling so great about this. I think there's better ways to do some animatronics. And so thanks, but no thanks. Wish you the best. See ya." So this is a little bit sidetrack, and this is a risk,
For who?
For me right now.
To sidetrack?
To do a little bit of a sidetrack, because if you remember last week, I charged the audience with doing some homework, and the homework was to watch the trailer for the suspense thriller.
Oh yeah,
Single White Female,
starring Jennifer Jason Leigh and
Bridget Fonda.
I've never seen it, but I did watch that. You did make me watch the trailer, and it's basically roommates. One of them, they told the whole freaking thing in the trailer. One of them really likes the other one, so she like tries to become her, cuts her hair the same, tries to steal her boyfriend. It reminded me of, so I never saw the whole Talented Mr. Ripley, but I feel like that's the same thing. There's it's a trope.
Yeah.
Take over someone's life, steal their families, whatever. So how's that tying into?
But go watch the trailer because it's pretty.
Yeah, you don't have to watch the movie. Just watch the trailer.
The tagline of the movie is Allie's new roommate is about to borrow a few things: her clothes, her boyfriend, her life.
Wow.
So this is where we come back to Chuck E. Cheese, because Robert Brock, instead of going into business with our buddy Nolan, he decides to start his own restaurant. And guess what kind of like the 3 core concepts are? He's got pizza, video games, animatronics, and it's Showbiz Pizza. So anyone that knows Showbiz Pizza is basically Robert Brock trying to like single white female and to become Chuck E. Cheese.
Allegedly.
That's my take on it. That's my take.
I think he's all of my when did Showbiz Pizza stop? When did they go out?
Well, that'll be later. I'll get there.
Well, I think
through the 80s. It was open through the 80s.
It stopped in the 90s?
In the early 90s, yeah.
So I was born in 88. I feel like I remember more Showbiz Pizza as a kid, but if I was 1 or 2, maybe I didn't. But I remember they still had the Showbiz animatronics, the chicken, the cheerleader chicken, the gorilla, whatever. So I feel like I'm very because they all sort of, after they bought them, they just used the same animatronics, didn't they? Oh, you haven't gotten there yet.
We're not there. Oh my gosh!
Spoilers.
Oh, spoilers!
Spoilers. They both don't exist at the same time anymore.
No, but so Showbiz Pizza, right? It takes
blossomed.
Off. And this was in 1980. So right away, Nolan's like, "Hey, I kind of recognize this idea, so I'm going to sue you." And I don't know if they won the lawsuit or that settled, but basically they came to an agreement that Showbiz had to pay Chuck E. Cheese certain percentage of their profits for the next decade.
Oh, that sucks.
Yeah. But they were allowed to still do their own thing.
Percent, do you know?
I don't know. I don't know if that was
I just quit.
Some of their profits to Chuck E. Cheese for 10 years. Or that's what I wrote at least. So maybe someone can.
So for a while they both existed simultaneously.
Right. For a while, but that was 1980, right? In 1983, there's this thing called the video game crash of 1983.
It happened because of the E.T. Well, people blame the E.T. Was it an Atari game?
That could be its whole
That could
episode.
be a whole thing. But yeah, go look that up too. They buried a whole bunch of them in the desert.
Yeah. We should do it. That'll be a
bad.
good one.
The E.T. game was so bad. They buried it in the desert.
Don't look it up. We're gonna do it.
Yeah, don't look it up. We'll tell you about it in a later episode.
But so Nolan Bushnell, because of his ties to Atari, and he is still kind of in that world financially and stuff like that, I guess. Nolan, feel free to correct me if I'm wrong about what happened.
He's not watching. He probably
President
has
Obama,
me muted
if
on
you
Twitter.
know,
I'm pretty sure. I wish Twitter would tell you what percentage of people have you muted. I think it would be 90% for me.
Wow.
And I think I have 90% of people I follow muted too. Do you mute people?
Me?
Not to sidetrack.
Oh boy.
Do you mute people?
I really haven't muted. I tend to more unfollow than I do mute.
I know there's some people in the audience I have muted on Twitter. Shout out. Continue. I apologize.
No, that's okay. Nolan has problems, and Chuck E. Cheese, they have financial problems that's tied to this video game crash.
Because it's a rat and pizza.
No, it's doing the business is doing well because of the video game
crash.
And there's just a lot of things that are tied to the business model and stuff like that. And Chuck E. Cheese has to file for bankruptcy, and they're like, okay, we I guess are putting the company up for sale, or it's public or something like that. And guess who raises his hand to buy the company?
Showbiz Pizza guy.
Robert Brock of Showbiz Pizza, single white female. At it again, trying to take over. So he does. He buys it. And that was around that happened between 1983 and the sale was basically finalized in 1985.
Oh, so if you went to that's when Showbiz Pizza was still around. So
right.
But then my question is, and I already know the answer, why is it if Showbiz Pizza bought Chuck E. Cheese, why aren't there Showbiz Pizzas everywhere?
Because single white female.
Oh, did you already say it?
Robert Brock is like, I don't want to be myself. I want to be Chuck E. Cheese. And so instead of turning all of the Chuck E. Cheese is into Showbiz, he turns all of the Showbiz pizzas into Chuck E. Cheese.
You become what you hate the most.
No, he's just envious. And so here is like the time frame of how that happened. It said it sold in 1985. In 1992, that is when by that time all of the Showbiz had been converted to Chuck E. Cheese. 1992.
There are like so I was looking up a little bit about I was looking specifically for photos of Showbiz Pizza in North Little Rock. It was either in North Little Rock or Little Rock, Arkansas. I found pictures online of a few in Arkansas, but not the one that I went to as a kid. And there are like whole websites dedicated to mapping like what version of the animatronics are in each one. And like what each store actually had and what each one is running. If it was like a 3-stage store or like a 2-stage store or whatever, it's what people are really into the history of Showbiz Pizza, Chuck E. Cheese, and the animatronics. I think a lot of it comes from, did you ever play Five Nights at Freddy's?
No.
Me and my sister did. It's basically do you know what it is?
I watched the Nicolas Cage movie. That's kind of a thing about
what was that movie called?
Wally's Wonder World or something like that.
Wally's Wonderland or Wally's Wonder World or something. Starring Nicolas Cage, and he gets trapped in a Wally's Wonder World or whatever with the animatronics that come to life and try to kill people. But the twist is he trapped in there with them? Or are they trapped in there with him?
Because he beats them up.
Or whatever I said, the opposite.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, but Five Nights at Freddy's, famous video game franchise. You're the security person at a Freddy Fazbear's. The animatronics are evil. It affected a lot of kids, I will say. It's kind of like clowns. Clowns would, kids grow up and they're traumatized by clowns.
Well, that's an interesting point but let me put a cap.
Continue.
Let me put a lid on what year did I say?
1990.
1992. That was the year they finally converted all of the Showbizes to Chuck E. Cheese.
Sad.
Guess what year the movie Single White Female came out?
1992.
1992.
You really set this up for the long con.
It was. This was.
I know that smirk, and I know you've just been holding it in this whole time. You've been weaving a web for us to fall in this entire time.
It is more. This is like the time is a flat circle. This is something beyond what we can comprehend. It is a cultural phenomenon.
1992, I was 4 years old. I was apparently at Chuck E. Cheese. We have a lovely picture of us at Chuck E. Cheese.
We do.
I love
really
Chuck
is.
E. Cheese. We went for Tegan's third
or fourth,
fifth.
Probably fifth birthday,
Yeah, and it's definitely not the same as I remember. So we started to go to a place called Playworld when we got older, because I guess it was kind of a Chuck E. Cheese rival, but the big draw was like, it had the arcade section, it had the pizza, but it had the obstacle course, the ball pit, and you go swing on the ropes and whatever, and it had mini golf in the back and stuff. So there were all these like little rivals popping up. And Chuck E. Cheese was kind of like, when we've gone to Chuck E. Cheese for Tegan's birthday, I'm like, oh, it's kind of just an arcade. Like, there's a ball pit. The rides are like, kind of like those rides that are outside like the grocery store where you put a quarter in and you just like rock on the horse.
Yeah, just like a little, like for like a 2-year-old,
Right.
Because they can't play video games. They need to do something.
I guess. But in my mind, I remember like a slide. I don't know where the hell I was. I remember like an obstacle course, but I don't think that's ever what it was. It was just the arcade, the pizza, and a few little rides for like 2-year-olds.
There's been an evolution. As because I'm
Discovery Zone. Someone mentioned. Did you know Discovery Zone?
No.
Someone in the chat.
No.
I think that's where I'm thinking of with the slides and stuff. Funscape, McDonald's Play Place. The chat. Wow, the chat's had some experiences too.
I think so. Yeah. So that's the nefarious portion, and I'll just do a quick little wrap up of the modern history, I guess, for a couple more bullet points to close us out.
Sure.
So in 2012 is when they officially, Chucky, like we said, used to be a rat.
He's not a rat?
In 2012, they changed him to a mouse, and they did some rebranding and stuff like that. So he's now technically a mouse as of 2012.
I think rats are back in, though.
I think so, too. Yeah.
The hit movie Ratatouille
They
starring
picked the wrong thing.
Starring that rat? I never saw it.
I didn't either.
But I hear it's a rat.
But I hear he cooks, right?
Oh, yeah.
Is that Patton Oswalt, I think, is the rat?
I have no idea, but I'm pretty sure. Chat, please correct me if I'm wrong. Isn't the main guy's name like something Alfredo or something? They all have pasta
Remy.
names.
And he's gay. Okay. There you go.
The rat's gay?
Maybe.
How do you know? Anyway, continue with your bullet points. Not
Okay.
Buca de Beppo.
So this is maybe supports
Linguini.
your cultural theory that Freddy's, what is it
Five
called?
Nights at
Five
Freddy's?
Nights at Freddy's ruined people because in 2015 they started doing away with the animatronics.
Oh.
They're replacing them with like more live action stuff, and to do, instead of the animatronic, the live performers, which I'm kind of like, I don't like that, but it's also like a rare example of where a person is taking a robot's job instead of the other way around.
Wow.
It's the reverse automation.
Wow.
So I guess I'm for that.
I think instead of doing away with the animatronics, they should make them better. Like Disney. I've never been to Disney World or Disneyland, but you watch those like they put like their test videos on YouTube of their animatronics. Like that Spider-Man one that swings across the freaking park.
I think they should do like those Japanese ones where they do the facial expressions and
you're just
smile.
talking about like early humanoid animatronics where they try to make them mimic human expressions and they actually just look horrifying.
Those are wonderful.
I don't think we should stop scaring the children. In fact, I think we should scare the children.
Yeah.
Especially at places they feel safe, like pizza restaurants.
They shouldn't feel safe. That's the point of life.
That's the point of life. No one's safe. Chat? No one's safe.
Sorry. Last couple of things. So during the pandemic, they had some financial difficulties,
Sure.
But they started, this was in the news for a little bit, but they started selling pizzas. And they say that they, out of Chuck E. Cheese locations, and they branded it as Pasquale's Pizza. And I guess Pasquale is one of the other animals that's in the band. And that's the name from it.
Oh, cute.
But they said they were just using the ovens. They changed out the ingredients to make it more adult flavored.
Fancy. That sounds fancy.
But I mean, we should. So if you find,
I would have eaten it.
Yeah, if you see Pasquale's Pizza, they might be reopening now. That was like in June of 2020 or something like that. But and then to close out, so they have, like I was saying, they have over 600. This was in June of 2020. So maybe the pandemic and stuff, these numbers have changed. But 612 corporate and franchise stores, as well as, I guess, they are part of the 122 Peter Piper Pizza restaurants. I've never heard of that, but they must be the same boat. They are located in 47 states across the United States and 16 countries and territories around the world.
Wow.
So
go find yourself a Chuck E. Cheese. I think you have to have children to enter the store. I'm not for sure about that.
I went in college. We went in college as a
true.
trip.
I went in college too. And I just ate. Me and my friend went because she had never been, and we just ate the pizza and used the photo booth.
And we did like skee ball, and we tried to get some prizes and stuff.
Ball.
And so, I mean, it was an okay time. And we got playing cards, and then we went back to the hotel and played, whatever the drinking games with the Chuck E. Cheese drinking card. We used those for years after that.
The photo booths are cute. I have pictures of us at, me and Justin did the one where it sketches you. Chuck E. Cheese has sketched a photo of us. Nolan Bushnell?
Well, no, it would be Robert Brock.
No, what's his name, the guy?
Nolan Bushnell.
Nolan Bushnell follows me on Twitter, and the mouse sketched a photo of us.
Wow.
Okay, Rich. Famous.
What more can you ask for?
Well, thank you for telling us all about the history of Chuck E. Cheese.
I am so glad to get that out of my system. It's just been...
I can tell you've been setting up that joke
1992. Don't forget it. Single white female.
Single white female. Chuck E. Cheese. I feel like I'm going to walk in on you preparing for an episode, and you're going to have a bulletin board like that episode of Always Sunny.
Oh, yeah.
Where there's stuff pasted all over it, pins in it, and like red yarn connecting the dots of all the things.
Well, my next one I don't think is going to have the opportunities for that kind of thing. My next one it's a trip way back in time to like the 1500s, I think. And I don't think were very many movies released around then.
Well, no, not just movies, just connecting the dots. Like this dot goes to Illuminati. This one goes to like JFK was whatever. This one goes to like Bush did 9/11, you know.
So next week's going to have some toilet humor. That's my hint.
Okay, so it's going to be very on brand for you.
That's my hint for next week.
Please tune in next week for sure for toilet humor from my husband.
You know it.
You'll get a slice of my life. Well, are you ready for thank you for
the 400.
The 400. Not 300, which was a movie. Is that was that a gladiator?
The Greek. The Spartans.
Lots of just shirtless guys.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I know about that movie is green screens. I feel like the whole thing was filmed in front of a green screen. That's not what this is.
This is Zack Snyder. It's the same Justice League guy, right?
This is I don't know.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
This is the sequel, 400.
This not 301. They
found 100 more shirtless guys.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
No. Okay. So here's what mine is. My Wikipedia article is the 400. Now, if you've been watching The Gilded Age on the hit series on HBO Max, you'll know a little bit about this period of time called The Gilded Age. The Gilded Age was roughly between 1870 and 1900, right after the American Civil War. And this list was created I'll get into more about the list, but the list is basically a list that was created that said, who's who in society? Chat said top 400 TikTokers. Very much that. It was the 400 people who mattered in society. And if you weren't on the list, you were out. So the Gilded Age, a time of economic boom. That's when there were railroads, factories, mining, finance. And the U.S. started to surpass Great Britain in industrialization. A lot of people got rich really fast. They were called robber barons, which was kind of a derogatory term used because people were like, oh, they got their money through exploitative practices, not paying workers enough. But those same people also poured that money into like social causes. So like charities.
Well, they did that, but they were also, there's a lot of corruption and stuff too.
A lot of corruption, buying out politicians, stuff like that. So that was like the new money. Rockefellers, Carnegies, Mellons, Morgans, Guggenheims, Vanderbilts. A lot of these families that you still hear. I mean, the Guggenheim Museum.
Yeah, that's still there.
Vanderbilt.
They didn't build it
then. The Rockefeller Center.
Yeah.
Carnegie Hall, Carnegie Mellon, etc. They left their mark. And back in those days, these millionaires, they were like how we relate to celebrities. So they were like the celebrities of the day. Everyone wanted to know their business. Who was at their ball, who was at their house, whatever. This was also a time of great wealth disparity. So a lot of people were really rich. A lot of people were very poor. From about 1860 to 1900, the wealthiest 2% of American households owned more than a third of the nation's wealth. So it's the 2%.
Yeah.
This 2%, which
it's
I guess
only
is a lot like
gotten
today.
worse.
It's only gotten worse. Now it's the 1%.
Yeah.
And during this time, New York City also had a huge population boom.
Also, Bernie Sanders was around back then too.
Wah, wah.
Wow.
I gotta get the soundboard hooked up. I can do some comedy wops for you. So here's some of the characters.
This real people.
Real people who are portrayed in the hit HBO Max series, The Gilded Age.
Unsponsored, but if you'd like to sponsor.
HBO ain't gonna touch this. After that Bernie Sanders joke, they said no. They said no. So we have Caroline Schermerhorn Astor, who was referred to as the Mrs. Astor. People actually said the because she was that big
the
of a
main
deal.
one,
the main character.
Were there other Astors?
Yeah, there were lots of Astors.
Yeah.
It was a big family. They were all rich,
All right.
all married other rich people. Played by Donna Murphy in The Gilded Age. So she was old money. Her husband was businessman William Astor Jr. She had 5 children. One died on the Titanic.
Oh,
So if you want to know the age, the time period of all of this, Titanic. Mrs. Astor was born into a wealthy family of Dutch aristocracy, descended from the original people who colonized New York City, that area.
they're always talking about who's on the Mayflower, who was all the way back,
And
that's important.
It's important to them, to some people. It's not important.
They talked about that on Beverly Hillbillies when they would get into the society folks, and then Granny found out that she had some chest from the Mayflower or something like that. So it's just all over the place.
Yeah. What a show.
Yeah.
What a show. So the Astor family already had a lot of wealth before marrying her husband. So she was a little bit more independent than a lot of women at that time period. She didn't really have to rely on her husband. She had her own money. And then you have Samuel Ward McAllister, often just called Ward McAllister, played by Nathan Lane on the hit HBO Max series, The Gilded Age. Born in Savannah, Georgia, very prominent family, but also married a Georgia heiress, Sarah Gibbons. So his cousin, he wasn't related to Mrs. Astor, but his cousin, you with me? His cousin was married into the Astor family, so he was close to Mrs. Astor.
Okay. That explains it.
And kind of like on the show, he was very obsessed with social recognition. He wanted to be a tastemaker in society, and he used his wife's money and her connections to kind of build himself up in society. Very charming, loved to plan parties, popularized all the richies going to Newport, Rhode Island as kind of a getaway. Kind of built the first Newport house and said, y'all got to come here in the summer, etc. This is where we party. And now comes the 400.
So this would be like the Fire Island of the Gilded Age.
Island of the Guild, I guess.
Yeah.
I've never been to
Except
Fire
that was
Island.
like a hot mess. No, not the Fire. What was the Fire Festival?
Oh, that's
where they had
very different from Fire Island. That's very
the Fire
different.
Festival.
The Fire Festival was supposed to be the music festival like on some island, and it went belly up and was a flop.
Yeah.
Very different from Fire. Which, I mean, you can compare it to Fire Island if you want.
Yeah,
Hot
probably.
destination.
Yeah.
That's probably a better comparison than Fire Festival.
Yeah.
Okay, so during the Gilded Age, there were lots of newly wealthy people, like I said. They were coming from the Midwest, moving to New York City. Mrs. Astor we've lost Justin's light.
Oh, there we go. Let there be
Thank
light.
God. Mrs. Astor represented the old money, and she was determined to create a system of social etiquette. She wanted to be the ultimate authority on fashionable society. So she would hold elaborate balls and parties, and she basically gatekept who's in, who's out. If you weren't on the list, you were out. She didn't want to have, she said, you're done. So allegedly, Ward McAllister coined the phrase the 400. So he said, there are only 400 people in fashionable New York society. And he said, if you go outside that number, you strike people who are either not at ease in a ballroom or else make other people not at ease.
Oh, wow.
So you're you're I don't know what you're doing to make other people uncomfortable back then. They like shit. I mean, didn't they like poop in jars?
Yeah.
They like
in the ballroom. In the ballroom, they would do that. That was one of the dances.
Did they have? Was that chamber? Because you look at you watch the Gilded Age, and you're like, these people think they're all that. They don't even have electricity. They're shitting in jars in the corner.
I think they had plumbing by then.
Oh, well, still, I'm sure someone back then was shitting in a jar.
Well, definitely, but that's maybe that's what the 401 was doing. They lived.
That's why they didn't get to go to the party. That
was the cutoff.
That was the cutoff. Oh, just a little fun fact. One of Mrs. Astor's houses, she had a few, was where the Empire State Building is now.
Wow.
I know. Just a little fact for you. Okay, so after Ward McAllister said this about there being 400 people, fake lists started flying around. People were like speculating and whatever. And the New York World, which was a newspaper around that time, they published that they were like, oh, there's only 150 actually. So Ward McAllister had to say something about that because it sounds like he always had something to say about everything. He spoke to the New York Times and gave them his official list. You can find this list online. It came out February 16th, 1892. You can find the original scan of it online. It's really interesting to look at. So some quotes. He not only gave them the list, he gave them this like 4-paragraph quote. And I'll read the first paragraph because I think it gives you a sense of his voice. So he says, the so-called 400 has not been cut down or dwindled to 150 names. The nonsense, don't you know, printed to the effect in the World and some other papers has made a very bad impression that will reflect badly against them, you understand. That list of names, you understand, printed on Sunday did not come from me, don't you see? It is unauthorized, don't you see? But it is accurate as far as it goes, you understand. This quote is full of you understand and don't you see? It's very pushing.
I don't understand.
It's very like pushing his view. Like if you disagree with him, you're dumb. It's kind of the impression I get from the way he talks. Anyway, the list came out. It included bankers, lawyers, brokers, real estate men, railroaders, 1 editor, 1 publisher, 1 artist, and 2 architects. It also included both old and new money, which Mrs. Astor... Scandalous. Mrs. Astor, begrudgingly accepted some new money families.
I understand.
You understand?
I understand.
Oh, having to accept both new money and old money?
And I'm just understanding his...
Oh, okay. I thought you had this in your... You had to accept both new money and old money. So he chalked up this list. Let me tell you, it was a little bit of a mess. There weren't even 400 names on it. I don't know if he miscounted. We don't know. Names were misspelled. He left off some people's spouses, and he included some people who were dead on the list.
Well, were they pretty fun still?
I don't know.
Maybe.
That's a good question.
Weekend at Bernie's.
Maybe they knew how to turn out I never saw Weekend at Bernie's.
That was another... Oh, boy.
Maybe they knew how to turn a party. Maybe they Maybe that's animatronics.
Oh, boy.
That's where they started.
That's the Chuck E. Cheese.
That's dark. Anyway, there was, of course, a big backlash. People had a problem with the idea of this list existing. And then at Ward McAllister, he was referred to as Mr. McAllister. He had also published a memoir a couple years earlier called Society as I Have Found It. And that pissed off a lot of old money because he talked about them and they wanted certain things kept secret. And then came the parodies of the list. There was a book by O. Henry called The 4 Million, which was the population of New York City at that time. And that was kind of his way of saying every person in New York matters.
Oh, Henry.
And then in 2009, the Museum of the City of New York created the New York City 400, which contained 400 people who made a difference in New York City history since 1609, so over 400 years, And they did actually include Ward McAllister on their list.
Oh.
I think he was the only one from the original list that made it to their list as well. Now, unsurprisingly, Ward McAllister and Mrs. Astor parted ways, and he died in social disgrace alone in January 1895.
Whoa, 1895. Well, that's not too far after all this. Yeah.
No, it was just 3 years? So essentially, this list kind of, I guess, ruined him.
Wow.
Yeah, and everyone kind of was like, okay, you've become more of a liability than anything else. You're done.
I feel bad for you, Ward. I feel for you. And then they dressed him up and at the parties and stuff.
They didn't even want his corpse at the parties.
Oh, boy. Wow.
I don't think Mrs. Astor went to his funeral. There was I didn't write any of this down, but there was essentially a gossip paper that kind of like followed the 400 after or during this, around this, whatever. And they wrote something like, Mrs. Astor wouldn't even break her dinner plans to go to that funeral or something like that about his death or whatever. So, yeah, someone said he's the first Twitter cancellation.
Oh,
he was essentially, this is cancel culture.
That was.
Cancel culture 1890s edition.
I don't know, but it's also like, you're asking for it.
I don't know. I'm not serious
You're
about
a gatekeeper. That. Yeah, you're a gatekeeper, and then all of a sudden, oh, shit, what?
Yeah, I don't really know. I feel like he thought he got too big for his britches. He thought he was more than, perhaps, like he thought his friends were better friends than maybe they were. Like, people aren't going to stick, like you start talking shit about people, they're not going to be your friends anymore.
Yeah.
That's just friendship 101.
Yeah.
Now, the interesting part, though, is how I came across this is, you remember, spoilers, if you haven't seen The Gilded Age, I'm about to talk about the
There's
final
no
episode.
such thing as a spoiler in that. Nothing happens.
Okay, that's true. I love The Gilded Age because it is the most low-stakes show in the history. The drama is so almost nothing. Oh, wait, here's a question. Do you think he would have been canceled if he was old money? He was technically old money. He came from a prominent family, and he married old money, essentially. So he was accepted into the old money groups, from what I understand. Okay, but here's what happened in the last episode of The Gilded Age on HBO Max, which is based off a true story, actually. That whole season is kind of leading up to this New York City legend that... Okay, so in The Gilded Age, you have Bertha Russell, played by Carrie Coon, who kind of represents the Vanderbilts. That's one of the new money families that Mrs. Astor eventually accepted into society. Legend has it, Alva Vanderbilt had planned a costume ball for her own housewarming. So in the show, it's portrayed as the daughters, the daughter. And in Alva Vanderbilt's party, she was going to have entertainments by young society figures. At the last minute, told Caroline Astor, who was Mrs. Astor's daughter, that she couldn't participate because Mrs. Astor had not formally called on her. So, essentially, that was inspired. That inspired the last story where Mrs. Russell's trying to gain recognition. Because if you wanted to become anyone, you needed Mrs. Astor's approval. She needed to call on you. You needed to be invited to her balls. You needed to be seen.
Yeah.
There you have it. What do you think is similar to what's our 400? I think celebrities.
There's like the Oscars, that kind of stuff, like.
I feel like, we definitely put celebrities in different tiers. I think a lot of rich people these days, New York still has that though.
Yeah. Like
New York has its own socialites. Every city kind of has its own socialites, but not as many people care anymore. Which I think is good.
But there's and it's more global too. It's like you've got Elon Musk, everyone cares about and he's like a business person, but then there's also people that are just kind of like rich for no reason. And there's just all kinds of, equating this, success and having stuff to someone that you would be interesting to be at a party with just doesn't necessarily ring true,
I think there's just so many nowadays.
Yeah.
the amount of celebrities and stuff. People in the chat are saying the Met Gala, which I could totally see as like the event you have to be seen at, which I hate all award shows and all celebrity award shows and all events because I think we're awarding the wrong people for stuff.
Are you
like,
gonna?
I'm sorry. You got paid $1 million. You got paid several $1 million to do your job, and now you won an award for it on top of that. That's my thing about it.
You should write a list. You should write a list of 400.
My thing. I'll write my list. My list coming out soon. Wait for it. You got paid to have millions of dollars to have a camera follow you around for 2 to 3 months, and you got an award for it while you acted like somebody else. I acted like someone else for the first 20 years of my life. Pretending to be straight.
There you go.
And I didn't get an award. I got depression. I got anxiety.
That is your award.
Where's my award? So what I'm trying to say is I don't think anyone should get an award if I'm not getting an award.
I agree.
Yeah, I got Lexapro. Exactly, chat. So there, you got any questions about the 400? What's your list, Justin?
All 400. Oh, all Tamagotchis. The 400 Tamagotchis. Bow.
One of these days, I'll get to 400 Tamagotchis. I can't even tell you who, like, although you do hear about in Hollywood, like, I've heard things like, not Kristen Stewart, Kristen Wiig, like, kind of knows everybody and like will introduce people to people, and you hear stuff like that about the big celebrities who not necessarily gatekeep, but yeah, there are producers and stuff who do gatekeep who becomes big.
Yeah,
in those sort of situations.
See, and my list would be, I've always kind of liked the rebel outsider type, the second tier, the fringe. That's why you like me. You know. Maybe.
I've been a D-lister internet.
No, you're not a D-lister. You're kind of like your own. You have like your own voice. You've been true to your own kind of artistic vision, and maybe but kind of you're like the Radiohead of the YouTube people, right?
Do they have a Grammy?
I'm pretty sure they do. Yeah,
I wouldn't have accepted it,
but they did. But they don't like go out and harvest them. I don't know if they even showed up.
Seeking the Grammy.
Right, yeah.
Darling, you can't have the Grammy if you are the Grammy. It's a thinker. It was going to be better, but I forgot it. Yeah, that's the 400. That's Chuck E. Cheese. Any final thoughts?
Well, I'd like to clarify. That's the single gray rat, the nefarious history of Chuck E. Cheese is the official title,
and mine's just called the 400. The 400 haters.
Ooh, okay.
Well, good. I appreciate your input on Chuck E. Cheese. It is interesting to hear because, like, I don't know, it's so tied into the video game industry, which is what I do now.
Mm-hmm.
And the 400 ties into my industry too because I'm just so popular.
You are a kingmaker.
Because I'm just so popular. Anyway, I guess that's all we have for this week. Good. I mean, in my opinion, chat, did you love the first articles? We loved them. Do you have yours for next week? Do you have anything to tease?
Well,
I don't have
toilet
mine for next
humor.
week.
Toilet humor.
Okay, can you go a little bit deeper than toilet humor?
So this is like
because I don't think people are going to tune in if you just tell them there's going to be poop jokes.
There is a person long time ago that did some very interesting and dedicated experiments
with poop
related to. You'll just have to tune in. It's not going to be disgusting. It's kind of interesting, but it's about this guy's invention that is, I think, a very interesting. I told you about it.
I don't remember it all.
I tell you about everything. All the babbling book of bullshit that just keeps spewing and spewing. And I know you don't.
Well, you'll have to tune in to see what I do because I have no idea. I have a list of a few things. I just got to pick one and stick with it.
Stick to your guns.
Pick it and stick it.
Pick it and stick it.
Well, as usual, all this stuff came from wikis. There's tons more information out there about all these topics. Go check them out. And thank you for listening to Quickie Wiki What? Episode 1. Like I said, you'll be able to find the VOD of this episode on YouTube as well as the audio on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. We will be streaming next week's episode live again here at twitch.tv/HalfMoonJoe. So we will see you then with more wiki articles to discuss. Thank you for tuning in. Bye.
Bye.